2009, the Caloosahatchee Estuary became impaired for nutrient pollution. Okay, we started a basin management action plan in 2012. This is Federal Clean Water Act delegated authority to the states to clean up pollution. When a water body becomes impaired, the Clean Water Act requires that we clean it up. I have to tell you, I'm super frustrated with this as well. Unfortunately, the loading rates that the load reduction targets are based on are from 2004 land use. They're already 15 years old, and that's the target we're working towards through time. We're never going to get ahead of the curve on that. I think every mayor in Lee County earlier this year filed a petition to administrative hearing challenging the MFL rule in Florida. Going back to MFL for just a second, it just occurred to me, because I saw Nick Bontos here, ex-mayor of Estero. And long story short, they lost their petition. Okay. Science tells us that the flow rate to the estuary cannot be met by the minimum flow rule. But we're spending almost $1 billion on a reservoir to meet that goal. It just leaves me so frustrated. We have a Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule. This started in 2008. It's supposed to last 3 years, okay? So here it is, 2019. We still haven't revised the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule. It's impacting habitat, it's impacting wildlife, listed species, and their habitat every single year. And it's the driving force behind the harmful algal blooms that are damaging our estuary and near shore areas even more. Remember Amendment 1, 2016? 75% of the electorate voted in favor of a constitutional amendment to adopt a water and conservation land initiative in 2016. 75%. It generates about $650 million a year in revenue. And the primary intent of that constitutional amendment, as voted by the people of Florida, is to buy primarily more conservation land. At one point, we were buying $300 million a year worth of conservation land. You know what the Florida legislature allocated last year? $35 million. That's about what the $500,000 in Lee County generates for conservation land in just Lee County. Conservation groups sued last year. They won. They won in circuit court, telling the legislature that you did not implement this bill as it was intended by the will of the people in the state of Florida. What was the legislature's reaction? They appealed it in appellate court. Did they ask you if it was okay as your representatives to appeal that lower court decision? I don't think so. They arbitrarily did that. The bad news is they won in appellate court. We're back to square one again on Amendment 1 in Florida. And so the powers to be are thinking of perhaps appealing that decision. You may also be aware that the state is desperately trying to assume federal wetlands permitting in Florida. And it appears that they will assume federal wetlands dredge and fill permitting in Florida this year. We don't think they even have the resources to implement that, but they want it. They desperately want to do that. And I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. Many of these regulations, they look so good on the surface. They're the bedrock laws of our country. The ordinances, the rules, the Florida Administrative Code. But when you get down and try to understand how these laws are being implemented and interpreted and funded, that's where it breaks down. Okay? So we have great laws. We have wonderful laws in Florida. But how they're interpreted as they're applied for environmental resource permitting is a big deal, okay? And it's not happening, and that's where the whole process breaks down, okay? So you can sense I'm a little frustrated, Carl and I were part of a group that challenged the Chiquita lock removal in Cape Coral. Here's an example where the state interpreted the regulation that would have enabled the city to remove the Chiquita lock. Long story short, they gave the city credit for reducing nitrogen by 40,000 pounds a year from just the existence of the freshwater canal system. It wasn't designed for stormwater treatment, it was designed for floodwater conveyance. But they gave them credit to reduce nutrients, nitrogen by 40,000 pounds a year that enabled them to get the permit. Okay, so we went to administrative hearing, that's pending still. Thanks so much for the folks at Matlacha Civic. I'll just end it on that note. You can sense I'm just a little frustrated with the process. It isn't working and it's time for something new. And I'm really hoping the new paradigm will be rights of nature. Okay, so thanks for everybody that's behind this, for the leadership. Awesome work you're doing. I love grassroots advocacy, and that's what this is all about. And let's take it back. Thanks.
And what happens is you write a great bill, you work with your legislator, you write a great bill, it goes to Tallahassee, and that's where all good ideas go to die. Because what happens is they go to Tallahassee, and the first thing that happens is the lobbyists get a hold of them. The lobbyists for the Florida Chamber of Commerce, Associated Industries of Florida, they read the bill and they go, no, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. What we're going to do is we're going to do it this way, and we're going to do it that way, and we're going to X out what you tried to do. So does anybody here think that the current system is actually working? Okay, no hands. So how do we make the system work for us? And 5 years ago, I was very grateful to meet Thomas Lindsay. He was in the movie that you just saw. And he put on what's called the Democracy School, and went through a lot of the different technicalities of what goes on with the rights of nature ordinance. And I kept trying to make the system work here and realized it can't work. It's designed not to work. Our system is designed not to represent you and me. It's designed to represent the people in Tallahassee, the organizations that pay to put the legislators into office. I know you might say, wow, we have some people running for office here. And I know very many great people who are in office. But what it comes down to is, in the final analysis, in the final vote, it's those organizations who pay the lobbyists, the $450 lobbyists an hour, to come in after you come into the office and tell them that everything that you just said is wrong. And they have a study that will prove that you're wrong and that you don't need clean water. But I believe that everyone in this room, has the right to clean water. If you believe that you have the right to clean water, please put up your hand. That's a lot of people. So how do we get the right to clean water into law? There are two ways to do it: through our state constitution, and we know about the Citizens Initiative movement, but there are also 20 charter counties out of the 67 in this state. And so what we're trying to do is to organize 20 different countywide efforts to get the rights of nature to put into our county charters, so that we have a law in our county charters that says, no, you cannot come in here and pollute, you can't come in here and frack, and if you do, the citizens have the right to bring a suit against the entity that's doing that. So it's an empowering thing here. We're empowering citizens to take action, to take matters into their own hands. And I hate to say it, but that is the only thing that I have found that can work. Because the system that's set up now and so polluted with money. You saw Citizens Initiative, Citizens United. That is unfortunately corrupting our political process. So we have to create a new process, and that starts here. That starts in our counties. And Carl and Sherry, where's Sherry? She already left? Oh, she's in the line. They've started up here with a group of people, fine group of people, the Caloosahatchee River Bill of Rights. And it's following the tradition of the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. We have Tish and Marky here to talk about that. But the important thing is, and I hope you will stay involved in this process, because there are 3 ways to get a charter amendment into your local government, into your local laws. The first is the county commissioners can vote to put it in there. How many people think that's likely that your county commissioner? What? Well, there we go. We have a couple optimists. The second way is every 4 years or 6 years you have a charter review commission, and that charter review commission can put it onto the ballot, and that's what we're doing in Orange County. We're trying to get this onto the ballot in Orange County. It's called the Wekiva-Econ-Log-Hatchee Bill of Rights, and it's looking right now as though in November of 2020, Orange County will be voting on a rights of nature charter amendment. The final way is for how many petitions would need to be signed in? 250 petitions a day. That kind of gives you an indication of how the powers that be trust your judgment, right? You not only have to get 44,000 petitions, you have to get them in 6 months. They're trying this in Alachua County. They're trying to get 18,000 petitions in 6 months. They're about 1/3 of the way there. I'm not sure they're going to make it. But if they do, then Alachua County will also be voting to put into their charter a rights of nature ordinance, the Santa Fe River Bill of Rights. So this is springing up all over the state, all the way up to Pensacola, over to Alachua County, into Brevard County, Osceola County, and of course here in Lee County. We're doing it in Orange County as well. So this is a statewide movement, and I hope that all of you will stay involved and tuned in and help the Caloosahatchee River Bill of Rights get into your county charter, because Lord knows we need it. And I'd like to end with something, another introductions of folks who are running for office. But on this day, this Veterans Day, how many in here are veterans? And could you please stand up and be recognized?
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody being here, because I know it's a lovely, sunny November day. It's a level 1 snow emergency back in Toledo, so we have nice weather in November. There's lots of fun things you could be out doing it. My name is Marky Miller. It's kind of nice that I hear people struggle saying Toledoans all the time, because I was really nervous about saying words like Caloosahatchee when I was down here, so glad that we can share that struggle. I'm really honored to be here tonight. I get opportunities to speak in front of a lot of groups, but when you get to speak in front of citizens that are really revved up and thinking about taking something like this on, that's really the greatest honor that a group like mine could hope to achieve. Of course, I'm just one of many dedicated organizers in Toledo. We all helped advance the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, and I want to share that journey with you a little bit, and those conclusions that my community came to as we started down this path. So 5 years ago, Toledo experienced a crisis that made international news. August 3rd of 2014, 500,000 people in Toledo and our neighboring communities woke up to alerts with a dire warning about our tap water. Do not drink, do not touch, do not bathe. A toxic algal bloom of cyanobacteria had rendered our tap water and the open waters of the western Lake Erie Basin an untouchable toxic mess. And this event shut down our city. Within hours, bottled water became completely scarce. Prices soared, and its value was immeasurable. Work hours were cut back for employees sent home without the pay that they relied on. Those without access to transportation and media were isolated and stranded. Expectant and new mothers felt completely vulnerable in a waterless world. And in town, the restaurants and shopping centers closed, which was perhaps a luxury that several other institutions couldn't afford. Hospitals, care facilities, all places that were tested on their creativity and on their resourcefulness, totally unsure of what consequences might result if an error is made. I suppose the silver lining of that crisis was that it laid the foundation for the further growth of a grassroots movement that was already well seated throughout Ohio, the rights of nature movement. The right of our life-sustaining ecosystems to exist, flourish, and thrive. And in recognizing the legal right of the lake, it meant recognizing our right to say no. No to the legal and regulated harm carried out through permits by extractive, industrialized, and inherently unsustainable activities. And even today, as my community continues to object to those state-issued permits that inflict a financial, health, and environmental burden onto my community, we're told that we're the ones who are overstepping. Refusing to allow this trend of legalized harm to continue, Toledoans for Safe Water was formed, a group of regular people residing in Toledo concerned about our water, our health, and the rights of all Ohioans. And we saw that our best course of action was to amend our city charter by a vote of the people. Working with the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, we explored what this law would look like. And we sat down and we wrote it, we circulated it, and we campaigned for it. It's now the first rights of nature law for a specific ecosystem in the United States. Our volunteers collected 10,500 signatures. We put this on the ballot, allowed the community to vote on it, which of course was not easy, but we didn't think it would be. We knew that the path we chose was going to be one we had to build ourselves. And on this journey, we were met with objections all the time. Told no by our Board of Elections, left waiting by the Ohio Supreme Court, bullied by corporate interest, and dismissed by hesitant politicians. However, poisoned by corporate harms, we really had no choice but to endure all of it. And eventually we won our right to a special election. And despite all of those people and organizations and entities telling us, no, you don't have the right to do this, the people voted and they said yes. Yes, we do. And when it comes to Lake Erie, not only is this about our health, but it's about preventing corporate harm at the expense of our basic democratic rights. Our action to write and pass the Lake Erie Bill of Rights was based on necessity. A large percentage of Toledoans had watched the lake die in the 60s and the 70s. Many more of us grew up, like me, always assuming that's a dead lake, that's the dirty lake. We don't go there. We don't vacation there, we don't swim there, but we drink out of it. And after the water crisis, I would hear statements like, when are they going to come in and save us? What are they going to do about this? When are they going to fix this? And it became clear to me that those statements, when they were saying they, that had to be us. We were the ones that had to do this. Nobody was coming to save us. Nobody was coming to help us. During our campaign, we were called outsiders, meddlers, and extremists. A message that infiltrated our local radio stations and arrived in our own Toledo mailboxes. Protecting the health of a lake that sustains us is not extreme. And putting a decision before the people and the community that live there is not meddling. That message, by the way, was crafted and paid for by BP out of Houston, Texas, which, if you didn't know, is just a little bit outside of Toledo. They spent $300,000 to discredit our organizers and discourage our residents from voting on a law that revoked their right to pollute. We had already suffered the loss of our water, the trust in our tap, and now we saw our rights eroded before our eyes. It was no longer a game of speculation or risk assessment. We understood all too well that everything was at stake. But to do nothing was a guarantee that we'd lose it all no matter what. So we could remain obedient to unjust laws that destroyed and oppressed us, or we could start to break down those barriers and empower people to protect and sustain the environments, their homes, and their rights. This February, despite those expensive scare tactics, we passed the Lake Erie Bill of Rights with 61% of the vote. We now recognize her right to exist, to be healthy, and in return our right to have a clean and safe environment. We continue to be challenged despite the vote, and that's okay. Because as we say often in Ohio, we don't lose until we quit, and we don't quit. There's an energy that embodies this movement, and it's not one that's easily extinguished. It can be seen clearly when I speak to residents here in Southwest Florida, and tears form in their eyes. This is work that's built on love. It's built on dedication. And that's the energy. That's what fuels it. The rights of nature movement is not deterred or threatened by a desire to uphold the status quo. And I'm constantly inspired by the passion of my fellow organizers, the willingness of my community to say no more, and by communities like yours, who face a threat and refuse to stay silent. We knew we needed to see drastic changes, and that may be seen as a little controversial. But it's that confrontation between our evolving cultural values up against those oppressive legal standards that aid in the building of a movement. And when our unjust laws make it unsustainable, backed by illegitimate and unjust systems, we have an obligation to take action. The thought of making waves and sweeping systemic changes or being challenged makes you uncomfortable right now in this moment. Please keep in mind that it was uncomfortable in August of 2014 to wait in line for a ration of water. It was uncomfortable to be afraid to take a shower, to be sent home without pay, or worry about what you've been exposed to over the years and what health risks might lie in your future. Personally, I don't think I can really fathom the discomfort of ecological collapse in this wake of climate change. So, Southwest Florida, this is my story, but the knowledge that I offer is only as good as the action that it inspires. So my hope is that you evaluate this moment, recognize that you're making history, and make the decision to be the authors of your own story. The future of my law is uncertain, but our determination to save Lake Erie, defend our rights, and protect our community will always be unwavering. Thank you.
Oh my God, this is so exciting. I'm the Ohio organizer, not the Florida organizer. That's Sherry and Carl over there, and all you people in this room who are from this county, Lee County. And I'm so touched, I guess, that you guys thought that Ohio could influence and help you guys in some way. Some of you might be thinking, I guess now after seeing all this, because I know in Ohio a lot of times people get very confused because it's a lot. It's a lot to have thrown at you at one night. What is this community rights and rights of nature movement really all about? Well, it's about realizing that our communities, including the environment, are being seriously harmed. It's about realizing that our government and government agencies are not really protecting our health, safety, and welfare, and certainly not nature's, but rather protecting and legalizing the polluter's profits. And finally, after realizing all of this, it's about no longer simply accepting. no longer accepting poisoned water, toxic air, increasing cancer rates, and the death of the Caloosahatchee River. Did I say it right? Yes. I've been practicing that all day. And possibly just accepting the possibility of the extinction of all life on this planet. It's about no longer accepting and instead focusing on change. And make no mistake, the big industries alongside the public officials that they have bought off, they will fight to the death to maintain the status quo. So your local effort is about joining a movement of others who realize that our environmental vandalism is violating the rights of future generations. We are all born into a world we didn't make, and we have to realize that our actions or our inactions leave a legacy for the future to inherit. If we expect basic justice of clean water, air, and a livable climate from our predecessors, don't we owe this to future generations? And we start in our local communities because people are affected locally. Also because local's where we live. It's where we have emotional ties. Today we had an interview with a reporter, and Sherry was there, and Sherry started getting all teared up when she talked about your community. Marky does the same in Toledo. I did the same in Broadview Heights. It just shows how connected we are to our place, to our communities, and to nature in the community. Chico, California is an example. They were totally devastated by wildfires. Well, guess what? They're initiating new local laws and policies for the future. They're not relying on the state. And Toledo, Ohio suffered the water crisis that Marky described, and what did they do? They initiated new local law. And Fort Myers and other Florida communities, you've been directly affected by red tide and different algae blooms, and you now have to step forward and protect your local communities by drafting your own local laws. It's when you realize firsthand, when you suffer these harms, that the government is not protecting you, nature, or your community. And we all realize that those with the power and control to make decisions and laws want to maintain the status quo. They don't want change. In Ohio, they're fighting really hard to stop this whole idea of rights of nature. I mean, it's really extreme. It's really extreme. So, like Margie said, there's a lawsuit 12 hours after they passed. I mean, they got to celebrate that night. It was really fun. I was there with the group, and oh my God, we were so happy. 12 hours later, we woke up the next morning. It's like the lawyer's calling. Guess what? First lawsuit's been filed to overturn the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. So if you do get it on the ballot and you do win, celebrate really hard, okay, that night. So not only is the state of Ohio in a lawsuit right now, but they're on the side of the corporate entity that brought the lawsuit to overturn the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. You would think they'd be on the side of the people, right, protecting the water, but they're not. They're on the side of the polluter. And not only that, but they inserted language this past summer into the summer's budget bill, and it was a law written, the language was written by the Chamber of Commerce, and this is rich, okay? They handed it to one of our legislators, and he obliged and inserted it in there. It says that nature or any ecosystem does not have standing to bring any action in any court of common pleas, and neither does any person on behalf of or representing an ecosystem. So they inserted that and passed that. This is a clear example of corporate entities making the laws that restrict people, harm nature, and benefit themselves. Basically what it is we the people are being very obedient and following laws written by corporations. Don't you think that should be flipped around? I do. But on top of all this, the state, who claims, okay, in the lawsuit, that they are the protectors of Lake Erie, are at the same time issuing more permits for more big corporate agricultural entities to go into Northwest Ohio that cause the harm. I know this all sounds like really horrible news, doesn't it? But it's really not. It's not horrible. This is good. Because all their efforts to squash rights of nature in Ohio, it means that the status quo is feeling threatened. Which means we're on the right track. Which means you're on the right track. It also means, as they do this, that the people trying to suppress and squash the people's efforts, they're exposing their true colors to more people. It exposes what kind of community, state, and world they want to perpetuate. So when they react so strongly against rights of nature, the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, and even the people proposing and passing laws to protect their community, it exposes their true motivations, and that helps us. It helps us change the conversation, change people's minds, change culture. And when we do that, then the laws follow after that. There's really an inspiring case, and if you're interested in reading it, you can look it up, because there's 3 individuals in Toledo who helped with the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. And so, you don't get an opportunity very often that you actually passed a law. And so if you passed it, it's like you better use it, and use it really quick in this case, because it might not be law for very long. So these 3 residents filed a lawsuit against the state of Ohio, and they used the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. And I just want to read you just a little bit from it, because these residents, it's beautifully written, and it's called Mike Ferner is the Case versus the State of Ohio, and it's in the Lucas County Common Pleas Court. But one of the things the state did immediately is they filed a motion to dismiss, right? They do that often. We're just going to dismiss the people. So in their brief, they stated, which is kind of comical, that the plaintiffs, which are the people in Lake Erie, have not suffered any concrete injuries. So the people wrote in their brief, plaintiffs assert that ecological reality is more important than legal ideology. All life depends on clean water, breathable air, healthy soil, a habitable climate, and complex relationships formed by living creatures and natural communities. Social morality must emerge from a humble understanding of this reality. Law is integral to social morality, so law must emerge from this understanding too. In this case, this court is presented with an opportunity to help change Ohio law so that it may adequately respond to both the Lake Erie crisis and the global environmental crisis. Injuries to the Lake Erie ecosystem and watershed are injuries to all who depend on the lake. Therefore, plaintiffs have suffered more than an injury. They have suffered many. Their drinking water has been poisoned and continues to be poisoned. They experience harmful algae blooms every summer, and no one who has ever visited the shores of Lake Erie in the vicinity of an algae bloom can claim that these injuries are speculative or abstract. And if citizens could use the Lake Erie Bill of Rights to alleviate the problem corporate power enables, if they could eliminate the phosphorus added to the Lake Erie watershed by corporate factory farms in Ohio, they could eliminate the single biggest source of pollution in the Lake Erie watershed. It is clear then that the poisoning of Lake Erie that the state insures and protects could be redressed by the relief the plaintiffs request. So in other words, it's like they're saying, this is, and we hear this all the time, this is too complicated. How are you gonna, institute this? How is this gonna work? You'll hear that a lot if you do this. And it's really not that complicated because we know where the pollution's coming from. We need to stop it. So it needs to be prohibited. So instead of the state issuing more permits for more of the harm to occur, they need to actually be shutting some of it down. But they don't have the will to do that. Spoken of when we are gone as bad ancestors or good ancestors. Well, by being here tonight, by getting involved and volunteering with this great group of local concerned activists to move rights of nature forward, you've taken the first steps to being remembered as good ancestors. And it's really hard work, but anything worth fighting for usually is. So thank you for inviting us. We support and stand with you in solidarity from Ohio.
There's a question in the back.
Mr. Millard in the back there. I'm very new to this, having just read the article yesterday, and so I don't know too much about it, but it certainly is interesting. I moved down here from Maryland, where I lived on the banks of the Chesapeake Bay and was very much involved in work there to try to make the water a little cleaner. I grew up in Euclid, Ohio. I remember as a kid helping to set the lake on fire. So I do know something about Lake Erie. But what my question is, in either the Ohio communities, sounds pretty new for your ordinances, but either in Ohio or anywhere, once these laws are passed, what is the effect then? I mean, apparently it's making a lot of lawyers rich suing you, but I mean, what's the practical effect that happens, or are they all so new we're not sure yet what the practical effect is?
Yeah, it is new, and there always has to be first, but even though the Lake Erie Bill of Rights was the first in the United States, this movement, Rights of Nature, it's actually not new. The indigenous people have known this forever. And there are cases, Ecuador we actually helped them draft the language to put into their constitution in 2008, and there have been some of the first lawsuits that have happened there. The Vilcabamba River, there was actually a government project going on, and people there used the rights of nature provision in the Constitution to bring a lawsuit and said this is harming the river. And the river also was named in the lawsuit. And the court actually ruled in favor of the river, and that the project had to stop and that they had to remediate, put it back to the way it was before they started the project. So there's other examples in other countries, but yes, it is so new, so we're gonna have to do this as we go along. I mean, it's going to evolve. Yes, actually, we have. I mean, that community rights goes beyond just the environmental issues, that if you believe the people in the community have the right to locally self-govern that community and make decisions, there have been communities that have used this against, for example, let's say you don't want a big box like a Walmart coming in because you feel it's gonna harm the mom and pop type businesses within the community, whatever, that the people should have the right to say. But currently the way our laws are structured is that corporate entity can say, oh no, if it's zoned that way, we have the right to come in. You can't discriminate against us, is what they say. But yet if it went to a vote of the people may not want that. So yeah, this idea of community rights and local self-government can be used for other things besides environmental.
That's a great question. In Orange County, we started with the Wekiva River and the Econ-Lockhatchee River, two well-known rivers in that area. And it went to the Charter Review Commission. And they were peppering questions with us left and right, and we're like, oh my God, we're going down hard. And then they said, why is this not the case with all our waters in Orange County? All lakes, all streams, all rivers. And I was like, please don't throw me in that briar patch, the Brer Rabbit saying, yes, all right, we'll change it. And we changed it so that it covers all waters in Orange County. And I hope that here in Lee County with the Cow Board, that they do the same, because everyone knows the Caloosahatchee, but there are all these other water bodies that are equally as impaired and need help. immediate help. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
I have a question. I think John might be able to answer this. You're talking about putting these restrictions of the right on Lee County. And you're talking about looking at maybe 20 counties in the state. But unless we are able to do it at a statewide basis, since we're being fed by waters from the north of us, and pollution that's going into those waters from farmlands and other areas, isn't this going to help, but it's not going to solve the problem unless it's done on a statewide basis?
Well, I'm going to defer that in just a second to the experts on the rights of nature, but I would, and that's a great question, Nick. We actually lost a case a few years ago because of the regional authority over local water resource issue. And so 20 charter governments in Florida, I think it's worth trying to do that and increase that mosaic to a regional entity of sorts based on the rights of nature. But as far as the mechanisms go, I'm good.
That's a great question. The 20 charter counties were chosen because of the extra layer of home rule protection in the charter. But it's not going to stop with those 20 counties. Actually, the 20 charter counties comprise 75% of the population of Florida. So if we can install it in those 20 charter counties with 75% of the population, and that 75% gets a taste of what the rights of nature charter amendments can do, we're thinking that it will spread to be a statewide constitutional amendment. Because, I mean, let's face it, the session coming up, I would put money that they're going to try to preempt this in the next session. So we are headed to a statewide battle. There's no doubt about that.
I would just add a reminder that this is about movement building and about establishing what local communities want. And the more that do that, the more you create that statewide desire. It's that cultural change that Tish talked about. Without changing the culture, you really can't influence the law. And I don't think it would be any easier to say, let's start at the state level. But you get people involved, you get people engaged, and you start making those local decisions and making it say, no, this is my community, this is what we want. And my community is in this specific city, specific county, but it's also in Florida. It's also in this state. And it builds and it builds and it builds.
Just to add one last quick thing. I really think the systemic fundamental issue here is representative government. And the environment is one mechanism to implement that concept. But I've never seen a time or a place like Florida where we don't have representative government anymore in the state of Florida. The old joke is the most secure job in the country is an incumbent state legislator in Florida. And we haven't had a significant opposition party in the state in 20 plus years. And you see what happens when you have that level of political energy. I already took off my water keeper nonprofit hat, so.
And finally, I just want to add to that, and I understand where you're coming from, we hear that a lot too, but this is, like Marky said, about movement building, and no movement has ever started at the top. It doesn't start with the politicians at the top levels. It starts every movement, so whether it was abolition, whether it was women getting rights, whether it's ending the civil rights movement, ending separate but equal, that started all locally, and it builds the pressure upward. So yes, the goal is to get to the state level, but it has to come from the people first at the bottom, and they'll influence the change. I mean, look at the fact that we're even here. I mean, the Lake Erie Bill of Rights has changed culture enough, and they're trying to shove that genie back in the bottle. But you people have already heard about it here all the way in Florida, and other states have heard about it, and other people in other communities, and so it already is building.
Yes, so great question, Casey. Anybody remembered what happened in 2014 at a local referendum, Conservation 2020?
Yeah.
It had the highest plurality of any environmental initiative referendum in the country that year. 84% of the electorate voted to continue the Conservation 2020 program. So what's 84% of 400,000 or 300,000, something like that? Number of, who knows the number of registered voters in Lee County? 430. It's close. It's close. That's only 10% of it. So I'm taking a little different approach that something magic might happen here.
I believe in magic. I believe it could happen here. But I also agree with your question. And there is a certain discussion among the Florida-based rights of nature movement that, at least in Lee County, there may be a municipality, for instance, that could take it on. It would be, was anybody running for a local municipal office here? Or countywide? Countywide. I was just going to give you a plug if you.
My son is an organic farmer up in Vermont. There is no concern up there about nutrients leaching into their waterways and causing algal blooms because they don't use any synthetic fertilizers. There's no concern about pesticides on the food that are produced on that farm. My 2.5-year-old son eats that food, and I have complete peace of mind. But there are no health concerns there. My son and farmers like him farm according to principles that they believe in. They farm with integrity. They farm according to the laws that nature sets. Rights of nature would be a tremendous boon to the organic food movement in this country.
I just want to make a quick comment, and thank you for what you said. Every area is a little bit different though, and I don't know what the drainage system looks like for agriculture in Florida. That's actually one of our biggest problems, is that our watershed was a swamp. And it was the last to be settled in Ohio because of how difficult it was to get through that area. And they ended up tiling under the fields now, creating drainage systems that go out into the ditch and get shuffled out. It's the only way that we're able to even have the intense amount of ag that we have. And we have over 700 of these, at least that we know of, large-scale animal factories producing millions of gallons of raw, untreated manure, which has to go somewhere and ends up getting poured onto our farm fields. And it's a dissolved, it's called a dissolved reactive phosphorus. It's 100% bioavailable. It is not the same as managing particulate or synthetic phosphorus that may be captured by best management practices and buffer zones. We don't really have that. So that's been our biggest challenge. And of course, you're absolutely right, the pushback, those are lobbyist groups, and we tend to associate the farmer with these corporatized, industrialized agricultural complexes and realize that although there's not a lot of farming going on in Toledo, we're seeing the impacts of it. And there might not be a lot of farming going on in Columbus, but they're the ones that are there writing the laws and influencing our legislators. So it's a very complex issue, and you know, how this works, how rights of nature works in every community might be a little bit different. For us, that's our challenge.
Well, we're gonna use technology, how about that? And here's something that our current governor used that we are going to also use, which is texting out a video. You can text this video out to thousands of people, registered voters, explains what the rights of nature is, explains what the Caloosahatchee Bill of Rights is going to be about, and asking them to download and print out and sign the petition and send it back in. So is anybody in here, I know we had someone from the League of Women Voters collecting petitions. Anybody have experience doing that? Yeah, there you go. And it's so difficult, right? It's so difficult to do that. 44,000 in a 6-month period. I think everyone in here realizes there is a threat, a real and present danger to your health. And we haven't talked about it at all, but we have the chemists over here, the microcystins that are thrown off when the cyanobacteria starts to die can cause health risks that I don't even want to talk about it here because it is so dramatic and distressful. But I think, if there is a clear and present danger to everyone's health in this room, it is our current state of our waters.
So we wanted to wait until we had so we're building our base, you are our base, you're our foundation. We believe that we don't have the public awareness yet to do that. Also, you saw in the movie that it's basically parallels a political campaign. So we know that eventually money will drive the bus. And so the initiative that Chuck was talking about, each one of those texts is 13 cents. To mail a nonprofit postcard is 30 cents. So if we're going to put this petition on a postcard and get it to the number of registered voters to kick back 45,000 just for that postcard, for example, we're going to use multiple methods. We're going to be in front of Publix and the DMV and email campaigns. But just to put it in perspective, to do it by that postcard campaign with a 27% response rate, we have to reach 180,000 voters. That's a $60,000 initiative just to send a postcard. Fund this for 2020. Right now, our grassroots effort doesn't look like the funding is going to be in place. If we had funding, then that grassroots effort becomes a public relations company blitz, radio ads, TV ads, yard sale signs, bumper stickers, but all that requires funding. So the ask tonight is that if you have the ability to help us significantly, and even not significantly, but every dollar counts, but if you have the connections and the base and something that resonates with you, and you want to see it happen in 2020, we ask for your help.
My name is Sherry, and I came from Toledo, Ohio, and I'm one person. And all of you guys are standing in this room because I cried to Carl one day and told him what happened to my water, told him what happened to my dog, and told him what happened to my dad. This is a serious issue, and if we don't all stand up together, we're screwed. And that's as plain and simple as I can say it. And it's the truth. Nobody wants to tell you the truth anymore. That's the truth. And if we, the citizens, don't stand together, corporation and greed wins. Is that what we really want?
No.
So when he asks, how many people does it take? It takes one person to get all of you here. So if everybody goes home tonight and talks about it, that's network marketing. I don't care what business you're in or what you're talking about. And that's what we need. We need boots on the ground and people out there talking about it. They say if you go to dinner and you like that meal, you're going to tell 10 people. If you had a bad meal, you're going to tell 100. I want this to be the worst taste in your mouth, and I want you to tell everybody.
So the way it works, we have formed a political action committee. So Clean Water Now is our educational branch. Clean Water Now is traveling around the state from county to county, from municipality. Somebody asked a question about, I believe it was Nick, can we start at a more reasonable effort? So, for example, the island of Sanibel only needs 400 signatures, not 40,000. So Estero would probably need some, figure higher than that. So, so Clean Water Now is the 501c3 nonprofit educational side, dropping the seeds around the state. Once that seed takes root, then each of those communities has to form a political action committee of their own to drive the political petitioning side. Once that petition is run through, that petition process involves the supervisor of elections and the county attorney. It's a back and forth, it's a refinement. The day they approve it, the clock starts ticking. That's 6 months. When I walk out of the office with that paper in my hand, the clock is already ticking. So imagine now I've got to go get them printed. That's a $10,000 entity in itself. If we're going to do hard copies, we can mail them. Some of those will going to be hard copies. So, but the clock starts ticking, and we don't want to. We feel that if we come out of the box too early and we fail, we're not going to get a second shot at this. So we want to have that high level of confidence of success to do this. So we want 2020, but we may have to push out to 2022. But if we can get the support, both physically and financially, then we can get it done for 2020.
Can I add one thing? I think it's amazing that everyone here is like, well, we want to sign it right now. Just because you don't have the petitions ready to go doesn't mean you can't start recruiting people, start training people. A lot of people don't have experience with collecting signatures, with understanding how to answer questions about the initiative. So host your trainings now, get people on board, create a mailing list, learn how to write press releases. Do these things that will pop up rather quickly on you, and you have to quickly figure out how to do them, and do them on your own with limited resources. So start training yourselves on how to do that now. Create a list of questions that you all have, and as you're going out talking to people now, write down their questions. Come back as a group and figure out how to answer those, because having those ready and understanding them and making sure that your petitioners that go out and do this are well informed and know this up and down is really crucial.
Right. So, thank you, Margie. We got to wrap up. So our goal was to start petitioning in January. So, so we had that 6 months. That takes us out to June, and it gives us about 90 days to wrap up the loose ends and get it onto the ballot. Ralph Brooks was sat in our workshop, and he provides us with those answers when we can get his attention. And but yeah, at our workshop in July, we figured we needed to start sometime in January to wrap up by June to get it for November. So,
Start in January.
yeah. So I don't have the firm cutoff date. Chuck, any idea?
It's usually, the end of qualifying is sometime in June. So even if they started in January, they wouldn't have a full 6 months. But that's not to say it can't be done. You just have to really do it.
Right. So any more questions? We got just a few minutes to wrap up. Mr. Chabra in the back.
So we're in the South. How many of you guys go to church? Show of hands, anybody? I know it's a pretty liberal crowd. I go to church. I'm liberal. But so how many mega churches are there in Lee County? There's what, maybe 6?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's at least, I would say, what, 400,000 people that go to church in Lee County. Everybody pick a church, talk to the pastor, tell them that you're going to speak at the church, tell them that we're all stewards of the earth, and if he fights back, give me their name. We're going to get this done in 3 months, and it's going to be done through the churches. I'm going to start with my church in Estero. Nick Betos, who walked out, he's going to help me. He doesn't know it yet. But no, seriously, we have to get, this is indigenous. This is spiritual. You all need to wake up. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care who you praise. Go to the churches, bang on the door, tell the pastor that you're a steward, and print it out. We're doing it in January. I'm not waiting until 2022. I'm done with this state. I'm all in. Get me the names of every pastor in this church. I'll go door to door and bang on them.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Rick. So, one thing. So, back to what Margie just said a few minutes ago. We are team building. This is grassroots. We've got about, how many people we got? How many core people? 10, 12 people. That's what brought you here tonight, these 4 people. We need to build that out to 100. We need web designers.
Thousands.
We need public relations people. We need grant writers. We need people with all types of skills. If you've got a skill to bring it, and this is something you want to get behind and dedicate yourself to, please, we ask you to join our initiative. So,
And if somebody knows how to move the name and picture on a website, just.
Right. So back to a little bit. So, Clean Water Now is the educational. We're dropping that seed around the state. Our initiative here in Lee County we have formed another nonprofit, going to have a 501c4 designation, so that we can endorse a specific issue and endorse those candidates that support us. So the name of that nonprofit is Lee County Rights of Nature. I would like you to take your picture with our poster outside before you leave tonight, and put it on your social media pages and say that you support us.
Okay.
So that political action committee is still ramping up, but that financial engine is what's going to drive this to success.